The year is 2011. Across the vast landscapes of Texas, a silent threat is taking shape. It's not a single spark that will ignite disaster, but a combination of extreme environmental factors, a severe drought, relentless heat, and powerful winds that together will create a firestorm unlike anything the state has ever seen. By the end of that year, nearly 31,500 individual fires would sweep across Texas, consuming more than 4 million acres of land and destroying almost 3,000 homes. 10 lives would be lost, including 4 brave firefighters who battled the flames. The epicenter of this catastrophe emerged in early September in Bastrop County, just east of Austin. Over Labor Day weekend, families were enjoying the final days of summer, unaware of the danger brewing in the parched woods surrounding them. On Sunday, September 4th, 3 separate fires ignited in the area. The cause was deceptively simple. The drought-brittle trees, already weakened by months without rain, were toppled by strong winds and crashed into power lines, sparking flames that quickly gained momentum. One resident, Tiffany Cox, would later recall noticing heavy traffic and a strange haze in the sky. By the time she had put away her groceries, a massive column of smoke loomed over her neighborhood, a warning of the inferno that was about to engulf her home. The 3 small fires merged rapidly, driven by wind gusts fueled by Tropical Storm Lee churning in the Gulf of Mexico. Within just 48 hours, the flames combined into what became known as the Bastrop County Complex Fire. This was not a slow-moving blaze. The firestorm advanced with terrifying speed, consuming everything in its path. Flames leapt over roads, fire breaks, and even rivers, while embers were carried miles ahead, igniting new pockets of fire. Emergency personnel went door to door, urging residents to evacuate, but for many, escape came too late. Firefighters reported flame heights reaching 100 feet, and the intense heat ruptured asphalt and concrete foundations. Entire neighborhoods were turned to ash almost instantly, and the scale of destruction overwhelmed local and state resources. As the Bastrop fire raged, more than 180 additional fires erupted across Texas that same week. Fire crews from over 40 states poured in to assist, while National Guard aircraft dropped slurry in an attempt to slow the advance. Yet the conditions were extreme. Blistering heat, bone-dry forests, and relentless winds combined to make containment almost impossible. By the end of September, the Bastrop County Complex Fire had already burned 25,000 acres and destroyed over 500 homes. This single fire complex would eventually become the most destructive wildfire in Texas history, responsible for more than half of all homes lost in the entire 2011 season. For the people of Bastrop County, the smoke, the roaring flames, and the loss of their homes would mark the beginning of a disaster that would define the year. The devastation of the 2011 Texas wildfires wasn't caused by a single spark, but by a rare combination of environmental and climatic forces that left the state primed for disaster. The first of these forces was the historic drought that had gripped Texas for months. From October 2010 through September 2011, the state endured the driest 12-month period ever recorded. Rivers, lakes, and reservoirs dropped to record lows, and grasses, shrubs, and forests dried out to the point where they could ignite with the slightest friction. This wasn't just a dry summer, it was a fundamental reshaping of the land's ability to resist fire. Bastrop County, where the largest fires would erupt, had been in a state of exceptional drought, the highest severity level since May of that year. Layered on top of the drought was the relentless heat. The summer of 2011 was scorching, with July alone setting the record as the hottest month in Texas history. Temperatures routinely soared well above 100 degrees Fahrenheit, evaporating any residual moisture from the soil and leaving vegetation brittle and primed to burn. The heat acted like a kiln, curing the grasslands and forests into kindling that could carry flames across miles in minutes. But the drought and heat alone were not enough to produce fires of the scale that would devastate Texas. A third, less visible factor played a decisive role: a powerful La Niña weather pattern in the Pacific Ocean. La Niña events occur when sea surface temperatures in the eastern Pacific drop below average, altering global weather systems. For Texas, this meant the jet stream was pushed northward, diverting rain-producing storms away from the state and ensuring the dry, hot conditions persisted. The La Niña that began in 2010 was particularly strong and unrelenting. effectively shutting off rainfall for much of the state and setting the stage for a wildfire season of historic proportions. When these forces combined, the results were catastrophic. Trees, grasses, and homes became fuel in a landscape already primed to burn. Winds from Tropical Storm Lee in early September provided the final push, fanning sparks into unstoppable infernos. In Bastrop County, what began as 3 small fires merged within 48 hours into the Bastrop County Complex Fire, fueled by months of drought, extreme heat, and wind. This perfect storm of natural and climatic conditions explains why the fires were not just destructive, they were historic, leaving scars on the land and the people that remain to this day. When the fires finally began to subside, the full scale of destruction across Texas was staggering. Nearly 4 million acres of land had been consumed by flames, leaving behind charred forests, burned neighborhoods, and communities grappling with loss. The economic toll was immense. Insured property damage alone exceeded $500 million, while the state's timber industry faced losses of more than $1.6 billion. Farmers and ranchers, already struggling under the drought, saw crops and livestock wiped out, pushing the total economic impact across East Texas to an estimated $3.4 billion. Bastrop County bore the brunt of the devastation. 96% of Bastrop State Park, a treasured area of loblolly pines, was destroyed. The park's unique Lost Pines ecosystem, an isolated stand of pine trees unlike any other in the state, was devastated, along with the habitat of the endangered Houston toad, which relied on the area for survival. Entire neighborhoods were reduced to ash, and roads were blocked by burned debris, making rescue and recovery efforts difficult. Rebuilding would be slow and painstaking. Volunteers and forestry specialists planted millions of pine seedlings in an attempt to restore the scorched landscape. Experts estimate it could take a generation or more for the lost pines to fully recover. Erosion became a significant issue as heavy rains washed away soil no longer anchored by vegetation, creating new environmental challenges for the communities and the land. The fires also prompted lasting changes in public policy and community planning. In Austin, new building codes were introduced to make homes in high-risk areas more resistant to wildfires, requiring fire-resistant roofing and reinforced windows. Across the state, recovery organizations were formed to help families rebuild and to strengthen local resilience for future fire seasons. The events of 2011 left an indelible mark on Texas, reshaping how the state prepares for, responds to, and understands the threat of wildfires. The 2011 Texas wildfires were more than a moment of destruction. They were a stark lesson in the power of nature and the fragility of human settlement in extreme conditions. The scale of devastation revealed how quickly a combination of drought, heat, and atmospheric patterns can turn a familiar landscape into a deadly hazard. Across the state, communities began to reevaluate their preparedness, realizing that even regions with a history of resilience are not immune to environmental extremes. Scientists and emergency managers studied the fires closely to understand what had gone wrong and how future disasters could be mitigated. Fire behavior models confirmed that the speed and intensity of the Bastrop County Complex Fire were largely driven by the unusually low moisture content of trees and grasslands, combined with wind patterns that carried embers miles ahead. These findings influenced how Texas approaches fire risk, emphasizing early detection, strategic vegetation management, and stricter building practices in fire-prone areas. Beyond the technical lessons, the fires left an enduring impact on the people of Texas. Families who lost homes or livelihoods faced years of rebuilding, while communities strengthened networks of support and disaster preparedness. Volunteers, nonprofit organizations, and local governments worked together to replant forests, restore wildlife habitats, and provide assistance to residents, demonstrating resilience in the face of overwhelming loss. The legacy of the 2011 wildfires continues to shape Texas today. It serves as a reminder that climate and weather extremes are capable of producing catastrophic consequences, and that preparation, awareness, and adaptation are essential. While the scars on the land are slowly healing, the memory of those fires remains vivid, a story of destruction, human courage, and the ongoing need to respect the power of the natural world.